everyone. Thank you very much for coming. This is the public input meeting for the Natural Bridge State Park Master Plan. We will first of all ask everybody to make sure that your phone or your computer are on mute. We have a capacity here to mute everyone who came via computer. However, if you came via phone, do that. So we please appreciate that you mute your phone. Okay, let's see. Tonight we're going to have a little bit of housekeeping about how this meeting is going to be conducted. Then I'll be introducing Melissa Baker, who is the new State Parks Director, and Jim Jones, who's the Park Manager for Natural Bridge State Park. We'll have a brief history of state parks in Virginia. We'll go through the master plan process, and then we'll get into the meat of the meeting, which is the new master plan for Natural Bridge State Park. There will be a public comment portion, which you can do during your throughout the meetings, the chat box, or during a prescribed time. All comments will be taken through the chat box, and if you're not able to give it through the chat box, you can also give it through a written or email or call, and that information is provided. You can also, if you look in the chat box at the very top, there's all the you and you have easy access for as well, and that will be on our website after this evening for reference. So housekeeping, as I mentioned, all phones and mics on your computers need to be muted. Comments and questions go into the chat box, and all of this session will be recorded, and we will have it available for people to view afterwards. We will take comments until November 21st, and they can be sent to either me at the office address, at my email, or call or fax it. So the meeting's purpose tonight is to present the Park Master Plan and facility phasing for Natural Bridge State Park. This public input is encouraged and recommended to talk about park amenities and activities that we have planned for the park. Each of you have the opportunity through the chat box or through other venues to give us your comments, and we will take all of this into consideration as we move forward. At this time, I'd like to introduce Melissa Baker, the new Director of Virginia State Parks. Melissa, it's open for you. You have to unmute your phone.
It's an occupation.
So you just turned it off again. Sorry. Now it's on, off.
Okay, it kept muting me after I did, so. That is an occupational hazard of so many conference calls that we're all experiencing these days. So thank you for your patience with that. I'd like to start out tonight with a word of gratitude for everyone who took the time to be part of this meeting today. It's a really important meeting for us, for Natural Bridge, to ensure that we are targeting things appropriately, and I firmly believe that the best decisions are made when you get multiple viewpoints. So thank you for being part of this and for participating in the public process around the master plan. I want to do a little bit of just touching base with the department's mission and the state parks mission, and they're up on the screen. I won't read them word for word, but what you will notice there is that we have responsibilities for conservation, protection, advocacy, enhancing our unique natural, historical, recreational, scenic, and cultural resources. And specifically in state parks, we have the responsibility, in addition to conserving these resources, to provide recreational and educational opportunities consistent with good stewardship of these lands, waters, and facilities that will leave them unimpaired for future generations. And so I want to make sure that we're basing our discussion on that. There's perhaps nowhere else in the Commonwealth that better exemplifies the mission of DCR and the state parks than natural. This park has not only statewide significance, but national significance as well. And while we're managing and protecting this invaluable resource, we're also charged with providing the citizens of the Commonwealth with meaningful experiences of this special place. One of the ways we can ensure we are doing this is through getting your feedback. So thank you for taking your time to be with us today. It really is helpful as we go through this master planning process. With that, I will be short and turn this over to Jim Jones, our very accomplished park manager, who's going to give you a little bit of background and historical context for state parks and for Natural Bridge.
Thank you, Melissa, and appreciate everyone being here tonight. This is kind of my sweet spot. One of my favorite things to talk about is the history of our state park system. When in 1936, the governor then was Governor Perry, and he stood on the stage at Hungry Mother State Park and addressed a group of people there and opened up the first state park system. Not the first state park, but the first system of state parks in the country, with 6 parks, those being Hungry Mother, South Ferrystone, was once called Seashore, now it's called First Landing in Westmoreland and Stanton River. So Lynn, if you move to the next slide, please. As we've gone and grown over the years, in 1940s through the 50s, we've added in parks like Holiday Lake, Bear Creek, and Twin Lakes. And then we saw an age of, or a decade of growth in the 80s as they started coming in, where we acquired Hemlock Haven that added to Hungry Mother and new state parks across the state. The park's missions have been trying to have a park within at least an hour's drive of every citizen in the Commonwealth, and we have come very close to that. There are a few spots that still need, and we're working on this as we go. But in the 90s, the development had come along, and we had to do a bond referendum to help fund, as you can see there, 5 more parks and land, other land acquisition. Then 2002, the bond referendum was allowed us to acquire additional parks and open them for the public. As we move through, to the next slide. As we move on through, you can see just how many parks we have across the state of Virginia. Some 3 parks, 5 of them under development. This is just kind of a who's who and a big sheet of all that we've been able to accomplish over the 83 years in operation, 1936. I think it's quite impressive with the different types of facilities that we have to offer to all of our folks here in Virginia. Next. You can see one of the primary things we have is day use overnight facilities. We have camping programs, conference and meeting facilities, our state conference about the recreation. The thing that tops the top and most needed in state parks is hiking, and we have those throughout all of our state parks. So that's in this year of 2020, getting outdoors and having an opportunity to just spend time in nature hiking has probably been the best thing that has happened across the state. Next slide, please. Some of the relevancy in the 21st century parks are part of the community, and I can speak to that personally from here in Natural Bridge State Park. We totally love and care for those who are around us and our friends here in the community. I said this to them before when Jennifer, my wife, and I moved here. They opened their arms, the community opened its arms and accepted us as if we had grown up here. And we've been friends here. And we feel like we have found a home here in Rockbridge County at Natural Bridge. Things I'll speak to a little bit later on as we get into the things about the Natural Bridge. There's this nature deficit disorder, and if any of you have or read anything about Richard Lou's book, Last Child in the Woods, that is one of the things that we are working on here at Natural Bridge. The next slide, please. So in September the 24th, 2016, Governor McAuliffe received Natural Bridge and dedicated it as the 37th state park on the 80th anniversary of Virginia State Parks. Next slide. And some of the things that we have here, we do have the largest retail operation in the 38 state parks that are here in Virginia. It's one of the driving things that we operate, that helps us operate the park, and we function and operate as if it is, we are working as a business. That's one of the major goals that we have here. There's been some improvements along the ways. What you see in this slide here are some handrails. They are now replaced with wooden rails and are in much better condition, as we have worked on a lot of different things throughout the park. Next slide, Liz. This is the Cedar Creek Pavilion. It's kind of the hub for our operations. Once you come past the visitor center and begin to access the trail, we have concerts down here. COVID has kind of kept some of that away from us, this year, but we have concerts, Christmas luminary activities, and holiday events down there. And this here is a shot of one of our concert events that was going on last year. Next slide, please. The bridge itself is what attracts everyone from all across the country and all across the globe. 215-foot arch stands above Cedar Creek that flows under it. And as people hike along the trail, there are 12 points of interest that they can stop and get interpretive information from as they go along. We encourage the children as they're doing their hike with their families to watch the creek, because there's plenty of wildlife, great blue herons, green herons, otters that they'll see up and down through the creek. But most of the time, they're never going to get away during the summer without seeing one of the either a black queen or a brown water snake along the creek. Next slide, please. One of the interesting spots along is our Harmonic and Native American Village exhibit. It gives everyone an opportunity to peek back into what it would have looked like in 1699. Dressed interpreters, most of them are from African descent, help do the on-site interpretation. You see pictures here of the Longhouse and the Trading Center and some of the work that's being done there. We weren't able to operate the Monacan exhibit this year because of COVID, but we hope to be able to bring that back in operation as we move forward with 2021. Next slide. So let me wrap it up by saying some of the things that we've been doing here. We've picked up the food service at Rockbridge State Park. We also have improved programs, provided outdoor recreational opportunities. We have the interactive classroom and base camp, which is the typical visitor center exhibits that you see. They have been funded by grants to us from the Garden Club of Virginia and also the Blue Ridge Garden Club here in Rockbridge County. Recently, our friends have been able to build this children's discovery area, and it's an opportunity for outdoor recreation. And that's what I wanted to kind of tie back to the nature deficit disorder. It gives children an opportunity to get outdoors, play, and get in the dirt and just spend time burning off that energy that they have pent up. And in these days, we've seen an increased use of that in just having it open since last Friday. We have 7 miles of trails, and one of the things that we're proud of is from this view here, which is at Jefferson Point, that is kind of our base camp for our dark sky programs. We have are in the final phases of submission of our application to become the third International Dark Sky designated park in the state of Virginia. So with that, I'll wrap it up and turn it back over to Lynn. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jim. I really appreciate the overall view of the park and our state park system. Now it is my great honor to talk about the master plan process for all of our state parks. As mentioned earlier, the Virginia Outdoors Plan does talk about how it's important to have a state park within an hour's drive of every citizen, and we're working very diligently on that. This park is one that's in an area where there aren't very many nearby, so it's actually a great one to add to our system. We have a code requirement that we have to do a master plan, and the master plan has to be done with public input. And so that's what we're doing. There's also a major objective to conserving and protecting the lands that we have in our parks. So here's the code that talks about the master plan. We have to do this for existing parks. Every 10 years it's updated, but also for every new park. And this sets the groundwork for how monies are allocated, both within the park individually and the park system overall. For each park, we establish an advisory committee, and they represent the locality, the local citizens, special interest groups, government officials, and others that have keen interest in what's happening with the parks. Each one of these advisory committees meets anywhere from 3 to 5 times, depending on the property and what's going on with the park. For each master plan, we do a complete analysis of the existing resources on the park. We look at topography and soils, existing conditions of our natural resources and cultural resources, historic resources, what water resources we have, and we identify buildable areas where the best development can happen with the least amount of impact to the resources that are on the park. For this park, the Technical Advisory Committee came up with this for this park to protect one of Virginia's unique natural resources, the natural bridge. Visitors are the storied past, to demonstrate ecological management and offer a range of outdoor recreation opportunities, and work across sectors to promote this premier destination. This purpose was approved in our first public input meeting that we had a couple of years ago. At that time, we also presented these goals, and these are the goals for this park. As you can see, they cover conservation and preservation, the types of activities that happen, the kinds of facilities that are needed, the education and training, and how it works within the community, and how the park is administered and managed. In the course of this process, we did have a design charrette where we had a number of professionals and local interested citizens come together for a one-day intense activity where they actually came up with a number of alternatives for the park. During this and throughout the advisory committee, there were a number of issues that continued to raise up, and the one most prominent for all of us is the natural bridge and the condition of the natural bridge. Since US 11 goes right over the bridge, we ended up actually working with Virginia Department of Transportation to do a complete study. That study can be seen on their website. It looked at all of the geological engineering aspects of the bridge and came up with several suggestions about activities for the bridge, including removing the traffic ultimately off the bridge. Just for a note, the bridge is still safe and will continue to be safe, at least in the immediate future. With that, we ended up coming up with the master plan that we're getting ready to present to you all tonight. This plan is intended to be a plan for guidance over the next 20 to 30 years. It is necessary for the General Assembly to give us the funding that we need for its development, and also to show how the public has reached out and been included and how much they care about their local parks. Oops. So phase one, if you all have had the opportunity to download the information that was provided on the website, we can go through all of that in a kind of timely fashion. One of the things that should be noted when you're looking at these phases, it is the intention to do this after the bridge has been, the new bridge has been put forth by VDOT. There will be a lot of these activities that will happen that don't rely on the bridge changing its alignment, but that is indeed one of our primary first goals, is to help protect the bridge, upgrade its drainage and runoff, and develop an alternative bypass for it so that the citizens can actually walk on top of it and actually experience it from that perspective. The next big thing is to renovate the Rockbridge Center, as many of you all know. Actually, I'm going to pull up this map that talks a little bit more about it. It's a blow up of the map I showed you before. You can see in the center there that teardrop area is the Rockbridge Visitor Center and the parking lot. And there's a lot to be done there. There's a lot that has been done there. As Jim said, this is one of the premier selling places in our state park system. They've also added a really extensive educational component on one of the levels. They have updated the kitchen area and have created a really nice cafe kind of thing, but there's still a lot to be done. There's some issues with some of the mechanical systems and the parking systems and some other things. So the renovation of this has been very critical as we move forward. There will also be renovations of the Cedar Creek Pavilion. As you can see, that's here, located on the map. A goal is to maintain all the existing structures as they are, and to develop a new maintenance area and shop facility that the park can use that's easily accessible. And that would be just off to the north side of the Rockbridge Center. Other things that are included in phase one is to develop the Blue Ridge Trailhead on Route 11 with parking, restrooms, a small shelter and picnic tables, renovation of staff residence, creating a detailed site plan for the Rockbridge area, and then to repair and renovate dams as recommended in the dam studies that were done early on in this process. Phase 2, our goal is to sort of celebrate the bridge. The Wax Museum itself has been removed, but the building that it's in, our intention is to remove that to allow for a little bit more space next to the Rockbridge Center. Also upgrading parking as necessary and provide shuttles for handicapped accessible or ADA accessibility. Creating an additional parking of 250 cars is ideal. Its exact location has not been determined, but we will definitely be looking at where the best place for that is. Other things that are happening with the second one is to upgrade the walking trail to the bridge and to demolish and build a new staff residence, to create a nicer entrance at the visitor center, and development along Golf Course Road. And that's in this area here. It's a beautiful view, and it is a part of the park that has great potential. We want to create an observation point there, a large gathering area with shelter, restroom, and parking facilities, to create a trailhead there, and also to enhance the group camp and discovery area that's in that place. Adding a shelter to the Blue Ridge Trailhead, which is on the north side of the park, and recreate an amphitheater near Monacan Village. Remove the concrete amphitheater near Monacan Village, and to develop a mountain bike area in this area along 130. The phase 3 part of the park is really to experience the bridge and its park to the greatest applicability. This is to provide parking both near the mountain bike area and other sections of the park, to add a chairlift or alternative transportation to the base of the bridge, to add contact stations both on the north and south end of the park, and to develop walk-in primitive camping and camping in the park. This is the, in the lower right-hand corner there, you'll see where we have the camping area across the street from the mountain bike area, and then the primitive camping will be up in this area up above the Blue Ridge Trailhead. We don't have pricing on this. There is a lot that we feel that needs to be moved forward in all of these phases. We'd like to do it all at once, and we will not be able to. But before we can put any kind of budget to this, we need to make sure that most of the public and the advisory committee are in agreement with what we are proposing here. So at this time, what I'd like to do is to actually start the public input session. If you'll look at your handout, we have provided guidelines for that. We would request that all comments go into the chat box during this period, that you include your name and association. We will be collecting comments via email and fax and letter, as I mentioned before. Please state the facts of your position. If you are representing a group, we'd like to know that. If you're from the group, we'd like to know that. If you are in support of any of the comments that have been added to the box, simply state that. And we will take any kinds of questions and try to return back to you with those within the next month as well. So if you have questions, you can come to the chat box now as well. With that being said, we have a great facility here. And so here is the master plan for you all to look at. I'll give you a few minutes, several minutes to think about what kind of comments you have, what questions still need to be addressed, and we'll be looking at all of that as we take this forward. I just thought maybe some of you all might not be aware of how the chat works or what's going on. At the bottom of your screen, if you float your mouse, you'll see a bubble, a talking bubble. If you click on that, it'll connect you to the chat box. You have the opportunity at the bottom of the chat box to enter your message for everyone, or if you have someone specific that you want to address it to, you can also do that.
Some people may see the chat bar up at the top right-hand corner. Also, only 3 of you have put in your name and affiliation in the chat log, and we'd really appreciate knowing who was attending this meeting tonight. Some people are only recorded by phone number, so please put your names into the chat bar.
Is Jim still on the line?
Yes, I am.
There's a question about your education programs that you offer. Could you relay any more information about those, especially the young people?
I sure can. Primarily, we get a lot of visitation from school groups taking field trips and other tour groups coming in, and so those are designed to meet broad things like science, be that geology, where we interpret the creation of the bridge, history, how it has to do with the background of the bridge, its acquisition, and its previous owners, and how it became what it is today, and also through culture. The Harmonic exhibit is kind of the anchor point for that, where we're able to talk about the culture. There's a lot of different things that are going on over at the Children's Discovery area. We have a self-guided trail. It's called the Track Trail. From there, they can pick up brochures and be able to do a family-friendly half-mile hike and experience birds of the Blue Ridge, animal, insects, pollinators. Some of the management that we do on the park property is designed to encourage and build on pollinators in our base camp. We have the wildlife exhibits there to kind of talk about the animals that are in the area, and we do programming based on that. We have a observation hub for honeybees. From there, we're building and growing on that, trying to show the different pollinators there. We have demonstration plots here in the at the visitor center for people to be able to see those, and then through the dark sky program that we put out. There's John Goss from Roanoke Astrological Society, and also Dr. Newton from Southern Virginia University are always willing to come help us conduct astronomy programs. Just recently, we have one that was for our friends group, and they came out and was able to see Saturn, and I always going to get it wrong. I'm going to say it's Jupiter while they were up. So that's kind of a thumbnail of programs and things that we've been doing. One of the things we've connected with Rockbridge County is 21st Century grant for National Bridge Elementary School came to the park in the last 2 years every Friday and had outreach educational programs, additional programs that they were able to reach. And we were doing trout in the classroom. We were doing different types of math skills. And we've met recently with the Rockbridge Bird Club, and they're going to help us build a bluebird trail there. And from there, we can do data point collection and use that for math skills and for social skills and for environmental skills. So those are all kinds of programs that we have in place right now.
Thank you, Jim.
Lynn, do you happen to know what type of food surface will be on the Country Club Road?
No, we don't. We anticipate right now that it'll just be the same kind of surface that's there. We have no plans to change that.
There's an interest for stargazing and amateur astronomy. The road will need to be accessible by car to Hall telescopes, was one of the comments.
It'll stay like it is, which is very doable. Since we're adding parking and other amenities, we would not be downgrading the road at all.
We had a couple questions about renovation of the dams, and I've responded in the chat, and I've been responding in the chat for all that are on the phone, but the dams are still currently under evaluation. So as those proceed, we can probably provide more information about dams. Is the VDOT study complete for the Route 11?
It's complete to the point that they've given estimates on their top alternatives, but I do not believe there's been a selection made at this time.
There's a question about time frames for phases. Are the primary and secondary focuses for each phase, and will items in later phases take place sooner depending on the item, or will each phase need to be completed before moving on to the next phase?
So that's a really great question. We have no exact timeline on that. We often try and say that the first phase is done in the first 10 years and the second phase in 20. However, due to challenges, financial, political, local, and other things, the actual order of them can be changed. But these are our considerations because many of the ones early on will set the groundwork for what happens in a later phase. It's all going to depend on how much money we can get from the General Assembly or from other sources to help with the development of the park, but all of that will be determined in the future.
Is the park competing for land and water conservation grants?
Yes, we are competing with multiple of people for land and water grants.
And as I've just told the group, as I see the chats, I'm reading them out to Lynn, but I may not capture all of them. And so ones I don't capture, don't worry, we'll make sure we respond to everybody's chat by November 21st. So the chats have slowed down, just to let you know. I think we've captured the majority of them.
Okay. With that being said, just know that we can continue to receive recommendations or suggestions after this point, but I will try and be cognizant of everyone's time this evening, and we'll move on to our next slide. So here are where comments can be sent to. As I mentioned earlier, they can send them to me via email, regular mail, or by fax. So the next steps after we get approval from most of the public is to have an executive summary that's presented to the Board of Conservation and Recreation. And we will do that. That will be considered the third public input meeting. Once the executive summary is completed and accepted by the board, we then provide that executive summary to all of the General Assembly and give them time to respond to it as they want. Usually it's a 30-day response time. Once that time frame has been completed, then the director will sign it and adopt the plan as it was finalized. So that's the end of our show tonight. Once we have a final executive summary and plan and it has been adopted, it will be posted on our website like all of the other master plans are. If you have additional questions or information, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to take those on. With that, I'm going to thank you all for being here this evening, listening to all of this. If there's reach out to me afterwards, and I'd be happy to do that. So thank you all and have a good evening.
Thank you. Jennifer, do you know if the chat, do I have to do anything with the chat or will that be already recorded?
I've recorded the chat. So are we ready to end the meeting for everyone? I'll hit the yes button.
Real quick, guys. Sorry about it. Eric Miller here with WDPJ. Lynn, I sent you a message a minute ago. I was hoping I might be able to catch you on the phone or on Zoom real quick. I had a couple of follow-up questions.
Sure. Probably be best to, well, you can either email me a Zoom link or you can call me on my cell phone, which is 804-513-0260.
Great. I'll tell you what, I'll shoot you a Zoom link. Was the email sent in the chat the best way to get that over?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. I'll send that your way. Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Are we good to end the meeting for everyone?
I think so.
All right.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you all.